welcome to episodes of the Roundtable. I am one of your hosts here, Chino Mage. I don't actually know what episode this number is, and I really don't care. That guy over there, underneath the Lumon Industries sign, is our good buddy Templar 10. And Templar, you and I belong to a Discord server. You and I belong to a community called Lux Digital Church. It's a digital church. Find at twitch.tv/Lux Digital Church. You can find all of our things in the doodly-doo right there. We invite you to come join us on our Discord server. We've got a ton of people there, always hanging out. And in our throughout the day, we do what's called co-working. And you've been a part of co-working. I've been a part of co-working. I love co-working. Where literally, whatever you're doing, a lot of us work from home or have time during the day. And we just turn on our cameras or turn on our things and we go and hang in Discord. The discussion today went south. Thank you for posting the Discord thing in the chat. By the way, we're streaming this on Twitch as well, so you can head over to our Twitch and watch the VOD of this. One of the conversations that we had in co-working today was, do you need to wash your towel if you are getting clean, if you're only clean when you are using your towel? And so Templar, I toss that to you, living in our great white northern neighbor. Do you, up there where the humidity is relatively low, need to wash your towel if you are only using it when you're clean? Your answer.
Yes, I would think so. It's something I just do, I guess, without the thought. So, I guess thinking about it quickly, yeah, I think so. Because, one, it's just getting wet and then drying. So you could potentially get something on that, right? Like just the cloth being wet is, or the material just getting wet over time. Something could end up sort of growing in that. That's not ideal. Also, you have to assume that maybe the shower is not doing a perfect job getting you clean. So if the idea is that you're like pristine, like nothing, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. So I feel like, yeah, if that's all you use it for, maybe you don't have to do it that regularly, but I think you should be, yeah.
Okay. So the correct answer is the one that you gave. Yes, you do need to wash. Hello to Capsian in the chat. Hello to Annika. Hello to Druzy. Hello to Bootstraps Boots and everybody else joining us. Feel free to jump into our chat. I'll give you a bloop bloop on the screen like this. Cap says also skin cells. Annika said mildew. So here in Florida, we have to wash our towels no matter what. It doesn't matter what happens. If it gets wet, we have mildew and mold because Florida is just... I feel like God intended nobody to live in Florida. And that's just another reason why, because of all the mold and mildew here. That's why I asked, like in the great northern reaches where humidity is typically lower, you still have mold and mildew. There are people, so like Druzy in the chat right now is saying, I use soap and water and soap gets on the towel, so the towel is now clean. Druzy's a barbarian.
Soap is magic. Anything it touches is instantly clean.
Right. He said the towel forgets everything that happens. We good. I don't.
Just remember to always keep a towel with you just in case.
Always bring a towel. That was my Towley impersonation. Man, Towley was like one of the worst characters ever introduced. If I had to say, did you ever watch any of that South Park with Towley?
No, I was referencing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes. I was referencing Towley, the towel, the magical towel that soaked up all of the moisture in the universe and also smoked a lot of marijuana.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was great. I think what Druzy is actually trying to reference is the fact that if the towel forgets everything that happens during the day, it must be an innie. And the rest of everything that happens is howdies.
It's a good transition.
Yeah, thanks.
Well done.
I've been working on my links. Why would I be saying that? Well, we're going to be talking today about Severance. Specifically, we're going to be talking about season 1. The plan is, let's get season 1 out of the way. We're a little late to the party. Severance is a great show. And we'll give our history and our backstory with Severance. We're recording this in late February of 2025. I understand Severance has been out a number of years. I was just able to drag my co-anchor here, kicking and screaming, into the Severance territory. And so we're here now, and we're in the middle of season 2. And what the plan is going forward is we're going to actually do episode by episode breakdowns. We're not there yet because we need to get through Severance season 1. So a couple of months ago, Templar took my recommendation and a recommendation from a number of other people, probably from co-working, and he signed up for Apple TV Plus. And you proceeded to watch what immediately? Silo, right?
So far, I've only watched Silo and Severance. Yeah, okay. That's all I've checked out so far.
Silo and Severance. And so he came to us, and well, let's just talk about Severance. When you first turned Severance on, what were your initial thoughts? Especially just like the first half of the first episode. What did you think here?
Okay.
This is
team me up for that. All right. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, slight backstory here. I got into a lengthy debate with Chino and Druzy.
Good. I was waiting for you to bring this up.
I think one or two other people also, or maybe Cap as well. I don't recall now.
Finish him.
Because my wife and I watched the first episode of Severance. I think the first episode's longer. I want to say it's about an hour. So I think we watched the first 40 minutes or so. And we turned it off and weren't into it because we just thought it was a really strange comedy and we were not at all into the humor of it. So we just turned it off. And so I had a lengthy argument really with several other people in co-working about whether Severance is a comedy or not. Yeah, it did give me Office vibes in some ways, at least in terms of the awkwardness of many of the interactions that happen. It did. The first episode gave me real, this is a weird comedy. I'm not into it. My wife wasn't into it. Oh. And we turned it off. So then I had this discussion, that they were adamant about the fact that it's like a thriller and it's, really intense and it's meant to kind of keep you on your edge. Yeah, like the edge of your seat and, mysteries and that sort of thing. And I was like, okay. And, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, all right, maybe it just needs a little more time. Give it, someone said, I think maybe Justin said, give it, 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes are it takes a bit to get into it and then it gets good.
Yep.
So then we stuck with it. We'll get into, I guess, meta stuff or talking about it overall. There are still long sections of it where it feels sort of comedic in a way to me that I'm not really into.
Okay.
But I do appreciate what people were saying, that it is meant to be creepy and you're not supposed to know. I mean, the mystery element is evident from the beginning, so right. That was clear.
Right.
It just seemed that there was going for too much of a weird kind of comedic tone that I wasn't really into. But yeah, so we've continued watching it. I would say both my wife and I are solid on it as we've kept watching it, and most of what's keeping me watching it though is I just want to see what the revelations are.
Okay. Makes sense. So I like this trailer. It's a very good trailer. So I want to back up real quick because you talked about it being a comedy, and I can see that. We're even watching the opening right here. You can see this the initial trailer. It has very I don't know how to put this, but what's the I don't know, man. It feels very bad sci-fi, right? In the way that hey, you're supposed to laugh at bad sci-fi, almost cheesy sci-fi, and then it doesn't. And you said probably the end of the second episode, which is you and I were kind of trying to recap. The second episode was Mark taking a day off. Oh, that's right. Mark meets with Petey.
Petey, yeah.
Yeah, at the diner. And this is going to be kind of spoilerish because I think we're kind of past it, right? Are we okay to talk about spoilers here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're okay. I know Cap's saying he just started it this week, so maybe.
Oh.
Yeah. I think we're okay. I mean, it's been out. Season 2 has been going for a while, so maybe we'll try to keep the spoilers somewhat light in terms of everything, but because there's plenty just to talk about generally with the show, and then we'll save maybe the heavy spoiler stuff towards the end.
I like that. Okay, Cap, so we're going to spare you. Anyway, he meets with Petey, and it's right about then where for me at least, and I was like you, honestly, I think it back in whatever 2023 when this came out, 2022 when it came out, my brother recommended it to me, and I was still working at Bay Hope at the time, and he said like, dude, you gotta watch this, and I was like, okay, cool. And so I watched the first episode, and I got through it, and I was like, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's weird. I like Adam Scott. I think he all I've known him from is like Party Up or Party Down, whatever that show was called, and Parks and Rec. Party Down was his like big break, and I remember, and that show was hilarious. And so I was like, okay, cool. I kind of dig that. I don't really know what's going on with this whole Lumon thing. And then he meets with Petey, and that's when it was like Petey says something, and I'm not going to spoil whatever it says, but like Petey says something, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, like this is something entirely different. And from then on, the in perpetuity, and really the one that really got me was the Defiant Jazz one, the dance party, because I don't want to spoil. There's no spoiler here. The way that they interpose what's happening in the dance party with something else that's happening at the same time, I was like, this is the way they use all of this brilliant color, all of these like brilliant lights, and yet the other thing that they're showing is kind of like dark and grimy, and like they're putting somebody's life in danger, and possibly somebody is like gonna die, like that type of thing. Is very, very cool. They are doing some talking about a different show. I'm caught up on Severance. Oh, okay. Well, good. We're still not going to do any spoilers yet, says Cap. They're doing mysterious and important work at Lumon. Hello, Xander. Good to see you. So, like, is that when it about clicked for you? Was the end of episode 2 into episode 3?
I guess so. Like, again, like, Severance is like a 7 out of 10 for me. Like, okay. I enjoy it. It's solid. It's not like a masterpiece to me or anything. Like, okay. I'm into it, but like I said, it's mostly my wife and I are both mostly watching it just to see what the revelations are at this point. Like, the performances are good. Like, I like all the kind of main cast other than Cobel. I think there are some scenes where that actress isn't great. And I don't know if the point is that she's supposed to be acting in the show, so like the scenes are meant to come across as kind of weird.
I've got
but
some
whatever. It doesn't. Yeah. So like there's some weirdness going on with her. Or there's weirdness going on with a lot of people, but like definitely some weirdness with her. So maybe that's intentional.
Yeah.
But I like all the main cast. Like, I think it's good. I like the premise is cool and kind of mind bending. The production value is very high, which, you know, it seems like is a thing with Apple TVs, that they do a good job. Like, everything looks very good.
Yep. All the money.
But it's, you know, yeah, like for me, it's solid. I enjoy it. It's not, I don't think it's like a masterpiece. It's not like a 10 out of 10 for me. It's like a 7 out of 10. It's good. I like it.
Okay. That's fair. I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's a solid 9 out of 10 for me.
Like, I enjoyed Silo much more. Like, I enjoyed Silo, especially season 1, much more than Severance. Like, much more into Silo.
Huh. That's it. I mean, I guess I can see that, just knowing you, knowing your personality, and that's not a slam or a slight or anything. Just knowing the things that you like. I don't know if I like Severance better than Silo. What I will say is I like it differently. So Silo to me feels. Let me flip this conversation. Whenever I watch Severance, I have to be in a head space. Severance isn't a show that I can just kind of put on and just be like, okay, let's do this. Silo was a show that I could just put on and be like, okay, let's do this. Because there was always something.
Sure. There was
stuff up in the margins, but there wasn't like that mystery box feel where I'm like trying to pick apart every little thing that's happening. Where the very much like TV and movie nerd in me wants to, like, there's the dance party thing. Like, this entire scene right here, there's like 50, like I can pick out 15 things in this frame that I just stopped. That like, okay, that's this and that's this and that's this, and that's only because like the time on the wall. Well, I know why the time on the wall is this, but I know what actually is happening at outs, that type of stuff. I have to be in the headspace to watch Severance. So it's a very like, it's like you love your children equally. Like, I like them both. They're probably both 8 or 9s out of 10 for me. Okay, so I want to move the conversation forward just a little bit. So, macrodata refinement. There's a lot of theories as to what's actually happening, like what is going on. Like, there's the whole like, what the heck is Kier be praised? Like all this other stuff. There's even theories that are floating out there, especially at the end of season 1, but moving into, let me pull up my episodes here. Maybe the hide and seek, but definitely into the Defiant Jazz thing, where there's theories that it's like, well, they're probably not even in the United States, or it's not even the same world, or there's a lot of things going on. Like there's a incongruency of technology that's being used all throughout the show versus what we have today. Like you don't ever see an iPhone, which I think is fascinating. It's an Apple TV show. Every freaking other Apple TV show that is at least somewhat modern has an Apple device in it. I have never seen an Apple device in Severance, which I think is fascinating to me. But even outside of that, there's a disconnect between what the innies and the outies do and how their personalities actually link up. And I want to kind of push on you a little bit about this. So when you said Miss Cobel, I want to go to her real quick. There's a theory out there that she's actually severed as well. Now, the reason being is that there's some different actions and some different things that happen. When you start to think about like theories, and we're not going to go into like the whole big theory because everything at season 1's been solved pretty much because we know the finale of it. But are you the type of guy that wants to challenge and chase theories like the Cobel is severed, or are you the type of dude that just wants to like, okay, I'll let the next episode tell me? Like, where do you land in that debate?
I mean, in terms of looking it up online and like really diving into like, you know, going into Reddit or like watching YouTube videos of like what the theories are, like I don't do that, or at least I haven't been doing that with this show. It's just been the show that my wife and I have been watching, so like we just watch it together in the evenings. We kind of hypothesize together about things that might be going on, but that's about it. I don't really dig in much deeper than that. So it's like kind of whatever I pick up as I'm watching it or as it's being revealed. As like I don't dive into it to see what, like, oh, 20 things you missed in the last episode of Severance or something. I don't do any of that.
Okay, cool. So walk me through like kind of the progression then. I do want to move into not necessarily spoilery territory, but like as you start to learn a little bit more about what they actually are trying to do, can you kind of walk me through like what is actually happening here in the last couple of episodes in 7, 8, and 9? Like what's the main plot line? Like what are the innies, I guess, trying to do here?
Well, the end of season 1 is when they find out about the overtime contingency because so this is going to be spoilery, like because Dylan gets woken up at home by Mr. Milacek, or by Milacek, and so then they find out that this is a thing. Also, Mark is in contact with that Ragabi person. Then the security guy goes after them. She kills him, and then he takes the security card. So he has the security card, and with that they're able to get into the security office. They find out it's not really, there's no one really in there. He was kind of the only security person seemingly on the level. And then so they have this big mission to basically see what the outside is like, kind of rebel against how they're being treated with the break room and the kind of weirdness that they've been experiencing, and try to let their outies know, and also the people around them, like to try to confide in them what's going on to try to get things changed. So that's the mission, and at the end of the season they do succeed in that. They get the overtime, they get the switch to work, and then you get these sequences with finding out who Helly is outside. You get an explanation of why her, when she tried to quit, it was rejected so quickly. Mark being outside and interacting, realizing that Cobel is a part of his outies life as well, and like that and interaction there, and then also more stuff with Irving and Doug. Is it Doug? What's
no. Bert.
Oh, I'm blanking. Bert G. His character. So they end up being successful. Like at least that's the surface level of what's going on. Maybe you have 7 layers deep inception of like what's actually happening in those episodes, but at least that's the surface level as I understand it.
Yeah. As I'm watching back through all of this stuff, what can you tell me about what you understand about what macrodata refinement is actually doing? Because this is fascinating to me.
Nothing. I mean, I don't like maybe there's a ton of clues all throughout the season, like that should have led me to some conclusion about what they're doing, but I have zero idea what they're doing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the end of season 1, you really don't know what they're doing because they haven't really. Now this is a spoiler for, I guess, us. Like, we're into episode 5, maybe season 2, 6.
6 was the 6 is tomorrow. So
6 is tomorrow.
5.
So yeah, 5 is the with the fruit head, the horrendous fruit head of one of the employees, which was, I think I might put as the thumbnail of this because it's very funny. Okay, but yeah, so they don't really explain anything except that they're trying to do something. Now, the reveal with Helly was the one that really got me. Because you knew something was up with Helly the entire time, right? Like, you knew there's no way, like you're watching the screen, like she's going to chop her hand off. She tried to hang herself. Did she try to do something else? She tried to leave by the stairs, right?
When she first got there, yeah, she kept trying to leave. She tried to leave like 4 or 5 times and kept being back there. And then, yeah, she threatened to cut off 4 fingers, sent the message out in her Audi, sent the message back saying, like, threatening her basically and saying she's not a person. And then, yeah, then she tried to hang herself in the elevator. Right. I think that was it. And then at that point, she's kind of just in and she goes along with them. I don't think she does anything else drastic to try to leave.
Right. So 2 questions then. Number 1, we just watched the UUR by Dr. Ricken, which I want to talk about that in a minute because that actually has huge implications and you don't ever understand that until you talk about it. But back to like the severed thing. So what is your view of the Innies? Right, like there's a lot of theories going around out there, and like, this is no spoiler if you watch any of the trailers for season 2. This is not a spoiler. If you watch the episodes or the trailers for season 2, you see like goats running around on fields. And one of the theories, I think that was response to one of the theories out there being like, well, the Innies are just livestock. They're just animals being used, yada, yada, yada. They're actual people. They have, rights and all those other things. Like, where do you stand on who the Innies actually are? Are they just figments of personality? Are they robots? Like what do you think? Oh, there's the goats right there, as a matter of fact.
Okay. What are they? So this is an idea, like, what are they in terms of their value? Like,
yes, in terms of their value, because as we start to learn, that actually drives some stuff in season 2.
I mean, I guess it depends how it raises. I find the Innie thing interesting because it raises the question of, like, what would a person be with their basic skills and basic knowledge, but without any of their own memories or experiences. Like, you sort of come in as a blank slate, kind of. Like, you still have knowledge of, like, the world, some knowledge of the world generally, and, you still use a computer and things like that. You're not completely new, but you have none of the experiences that sort of shaped who you are as like your personality and that sort of thing is part of you really anymore. So it's an interesting concept, and it explains some of the weirdness that you see with the Innies that get hyper fixated on things, or like when they make a big deal about like the most small aspects of, like, someone moved something on a desk or something like changed in the environment or the slightest variation on protocol. And then, Irving makes a big deal out of it, and I'm tearing my hair out. Like, this is the most annoying thing I've ever seen.
That, or like their prizes are like, 5 minutes of uninterrupted jazz, or like a waffle party is like the biggest thing, or, you get extra paper clips and stuff like that. Like, if you're tabula rasa, like if you're just a blank slate, then you don't know steak dinners, and you don't know bottles of wine, and you don't know like the actual good things about life, and so you only know these little treats.
Yeah, well, this is all they know, so that does explain some of why they're so. If this was your entire world, then yeah, a small change to it would be a big deal. Mm-hmm. It would be very significant to get like a finger trap as a gift for like a quarter, doing well in the quarterly whatever being the employee of the quarter that Dylan gets. Whereas when they spend so much time, it doesn't really make any sense, but it does within the logic of the Innies themselves. In terms of their value, it's interesting. I mean, my general take is that they're the same person, and like how much of who you are is defined by your memories, I guess, that have kind of shaped you. Yep. And we do get the sense that like things bleed through. I mean, we're getting the image there of Irving with the hallway that kind of seems to have bled through into his Audi's life, that he gets these images or things to paint, right? I think it raises a lot of interesting questions in terms of what their value is. I mean, I think they're basically people in a situation that is just prime for them to be abused, because how would anyone know?
Yep.
How would they know what's right or wrong? How would they know, like, what's a good way to be treated versus what's not, right? Like, so it's, it raises a lot of interesting questions, but in terms of what their overall value is, it's hard for me to say beyond just that they're people. So, like, there should be some basic value there.
The follow-up question then is, if you had the opportunity to be severed, would you?
No, I don't think so. The concept is hard to wrap my head around in terms of that they're both you, but I guess it would seem like an entirely different life, because you'd be building all new memories from nothing. I try to wrap my head around like what that experience would be like, because I guess it would just be you waking up in different scenarios, but it's impossible for me to imagine waking up and then having no memory of what I was just doing for like 8 and then doing it again and again, right? So it's no, I would think not, but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, there was a point in my life where I would have said yes, sever me. Like, work is awful. I don't want to do, not work is awful, just I don't want to talk about any of this, yada yada yada.
Okay. Sorry, Chino. There's just something I need to address here, because Druzy in the comments said we all make mistakes. Templar learned humility, and St. Bear's also come in saying disagree with my take the other day. Is that it's a weird comedy. It still comes off as a weird comedy at times. Like, I am sorry, there is no way for me to interpret some things that happened in this show without thinking it's some weird comedy. Like, I get it that it's meant to be tense, or there's scenes that are meant to be unnerving to you. But the stuff where they're just like staring at each other for like 20 seconds, awkwardly smiling at each other, like that's weird comedy. That's like Office. That's like weird stuff like that. I get it's also kind of meant to be unnerving. There's so much stuff that happens in this show, though, that is, in my opinion, meant to be funny.
Yes.
Like, that's meant to be comedic. Yes. There's no other way for me to understand it. Yes. So, like, no, all is forgiven. I never apologized, Druzy. I never said I was wrong. Like, the first episode really comes across as a weird comedy.
Get him.
And, like, as it goes on, yes, it gets more... tense. The tension builds. You get that kind of creepier vibe, and as you see more of what they're doing, it's kind of unnerving. But there are absolutely a lot of scenes, even into season like where we are now, that like it has to. It's absolutely meant to make you laugh or be awkward, funny, or something. Like there's no way around that. So like, just to be clear to everyone calling me out in the chat about it. Like, I don't believe I was wrong. I just hadn't seen enough to get the other elements that people were talking about.
Yes. Hey, leave my friend Templar alone. Leave him alone in the chat, everybody.
Hey, man.
Leave him alone.
I'm sorry. Sidebar.
I love it.
Please continue, Chino.
I love it when you get spicy. No, the last real thing is overall, like you said, this is about a 7 out of 10. What would you do? How would you bump the show up to make it an 8 or a 9 out of 10?
Cut out like the 30% of the show that is just people awkwardly staring at each other.
Fair.
I don't like awkward humor. Like, it's why I've never been to The Office. Like, I don't like that style of humor where people are just like something strange happens and then people are just like weirdly staring at each other about it. Or like when the one lady who's always on with the board shows up and she always has that like weird smile and just like stares at you for 30 seconds. Like, yeah. And I know some of that is meant to be like, it isn't meant to be funny. It is meant to be unnerving, but like that kind of super awkward stuff like that, I don't like at all.
Yeah.
So it just like grates on me, and I guess it's probably supposed to, but like it kind of takes me out of it. And like all the stuff at Lumen, like I want to see what's happening, what like where it goes. I am interested. They are slow playing it in a way that like I need something to happen. Like at least in season 1. Season 2, I will say, has been better for that. Yes, like more stuff is going on.
It has.
But season 1 was incredibly slow to me. And I know, I get there's things going on, and there was probably like clues like throughout that like I could have been picking up on this or that, but they slow played it too much for me. It's like I really need something to actually happen.
Yep, I agree with you there. It could have been 7 or 8 episodes. They could have taken some of that stuff. I will agree with you though. When we do start talking about season 2 has been better in a lot of ways. It has fixed a decent amount of what I didn't like about season 1. There's some things that when we get there, I will have to put down a couple of markers as to why season 2 I think is, if they don't finish this the right way, I'm going to be quite frustrated. Because they're doing the thing that Lost did in season 3 and season 4 of Lost, where they tossed a bunch of red herrings out there just to make people think one thing, when in reality, like, they had no concept of ever finishing that storyline. And I understand why writers do that. I really do. It's to keep engagement high. It's to keep people talking, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But at the same time, we're at an age where I can press pause. Like, the video we're watching right now is somebody that has hit pause on all of the pages of an instruction manual and has actually gone through them. You couldn't do that in 2006 and 2007 with Lost. Like, you could, but it was just kind of grainy crap photo. You can do that now, and so writers have to be particularly careful, and screen or showrunners have to be particularly careful. If you don't finish at least a majority of the big storylines that are being laid out in season 2, I think there's going to be a little bit of an uproar. That being said, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because we've still got 4 more episodes to go. So great, love it, can't wait to see more of what's going on in this creepy weird world. The way they ended season 1, however, with almost like the Mark scream, like almost the Wilhelm scream of Mark at the very end, was very cool. And I think that was a perfect way to end the season. It really do. There's no other, it's not a happy ending. It is just like an abrupt, like, yo, WTF, that type of thing. I appreciate it when shows treat their viewers as adults. You know, like I appreciate it when shows give you enough clues to go on and then say, okay, by the way, there's going to be more. You're just going to have to wait. Now, granted, there was a writer's strike, and it was only supposed to be a year, 18 months, and it ended up being over 2 years. Like, what are you going to do, man? Hollywood going to be Hollywood. Although I think it's fascinating, season 2, I was listening to something about it, and so Ben Stiller, obviously, is the main showrunner, executive producer / showrunner, and they had shot a bunch of season 2 before the writer's strike. And during the writer's strike, he had nothing else to do. It was like, I got no work. We're not doing anything. And so he took all that footage to his house, and he was like editing most of the footage, and he said it was missing something. And so they went back and they actually reshot like 40 or 50% of season 2 over again to like give it something. And like, I think that's why season 2 feels a little bit more like it has more weight to it, you know? So I don't know. I'm blathering on about season 2, and we're not even there yet. What else about season 1 before we kind of try to tie up this loose bow? What kind of struck you? What are the things that you're holding on to from this one?
Well, the stuff with Kier is interesting to me. I'm curious what's going to come out about that. Because if it was only the Innies being sort of obsessed with, like, because it gives real, like, cult vibes. And if it was only the Innies that gave off that vibe, it'd be like, well, that, again, like, this is literally all they know. So, like, okay, it kind of makes sense. But then, and I guess it does play into whether Cobel is severed or not. But, like, Milchek's, like, seems to be super devout with it. Cobel is, like, seems obsessively devout with it, and it raises kind of the question of like, what is Kier in this world? Is this like a, I don't know. I don't want to make any comparisons that people might take the wrong way, but like, is this like a alternate sort of version of like Mormonism, where he was like a prophet of some kind, and he had his own, because seems like he wrote these books that are viewed as like scriptural, and then there's some revelations in season 2 about additional things there, and it's just like I don't know what to make of this, because like there's a lot of those kind of typical elements that you see even in things like The Boys, where like they're taking shots at like corporate bureaucracy and like ridiculous corporate life, and like we're a family, and like all the kind of garbage that corporations will try to use to like control you. But then there's like an additional like couple like levels and elements that are present here that aren't really present in other stuff. So like that's like maybe not my biggest question, but something I'm kind of particularly interested in.
There are license plates, and I can't remember if they're in season 1, but definitely in season 2, that lend credence to who Kier is, and that's all I'm going to say. So we can talk about that. Yeah, we can talk about that when we get there. St. Bear says, I thought there was something ironic and funny about the scene where they're kind of making fun of people who over-intellectualize everything, where they had the dinner party with no food, knowing that the audience of the show is very likely to overanalyze this very show. Again, they're treating the viewers as adults. Like I appreciate when writers do that. You don't have to feed me everything. This is not a procedural crime drama. I don't need to start with the crime at the very beginning and then watch an arc that I know exactly how it's going to end. I don't need to watch that. And also, this is not Lost season 3. Lost is like one of my top 10 favorite shows of all time, but season 3 was one of the worst seasons of TV for one of these type of shows out there. It was awful. It was just terrible. Because they didn't know what they were doing. They hadn't figured out the end. They just kept throwing red herrings out there, yada, yada, yada. And so then they ended up with a fine show at the end. But St. Bear also says it felt like they're saying, hey, don't ever overanalyze this thing, just enjoy it. And I would agree. They're treating their audience like adults.
Would you agree with that premise for the movie Tenet? Because that's the same argument for the movie Tenet, is don't overanalyze it, just enjoy it. But you didn't seem to be into that argument when I used it in that case, Gino. So do we want to circle back to that? Or
no, this is an episode. This is about Severance. If you want to do an entire thing about Tenet, we will do it. I'm going to have to go back and grit my teeth and watch that freaking movie again, because Tenet...
No, you don't have to grit your teeth. You just enjoy it. So you see what St. Bear just said there?
I saw what St. Bear, and I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to have to grit my teeth. It's going to be like going to the freaking dentist to watch that movie. I will do a Tenet episode with you. That's fine. I am fine with that. I will do a Tenet episode if... Well, no, you're watching Severance, so I feel like this would have been my one to continue on.
It's fine, but... Is that what they're doing in this show, though? I don't feel like the message of this show is, like, don't overanalyze it, just enjoy it. I feel like this is a show that they want you to, like, where they are dropping stuff all over that you're supposed to, like, overanalyze. And, like, maybe they're calling people out for doing that, but I feel like they're also expecting people to do that in actually how they design it. Not just as a misdirect, but actually, like, to put things in there for people to analyze. So, like, I don't actually know. Is that what... your takeaway from the show would be? Just enjoy it, don't overanalyze it?
Not from this show.
Okay.
No. I'm not saying that. I think that's what St. Bear is saying. No,
that's what I'm asking about St. Bear's point. Like, I don't really agree in terms of this show.
Yeah,
I don't think they're saying just enjoy it. Obviously they want you to enjoy it, but I think they are putting a lot of things in there for you to analyze, and just a lot of it is going to be stuff that leads maybe nowhere or is a misdirect or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things to dig into.
Here's his point, and this is what I think he was trying to say. They're begging people to analyze, but then they're making fun of people who analyze, which I thought was funny or interesting. And I think that's like in the second or third episode. Like, there's a lot more to get through for you, St. Bear. Like, I hope you continue it, because there's a lot more to get through.
Yeah, and as much as I maybe have sounded a little lukewarm on it, I generally enjoy it, and like my wife and I have been liking it, especially season 2, but season 1 we enjoyed as well, even with my problems with it. And that makes sense also, the fact that Ben Stiller is involved, because that's kind of Ben Stiller's vibe anyway, like doing that.
Yes.
Like, even to go back to a movie that I guess is somewhat controversial now, or kind of was at the time, but like Tropic Thunder is is very meta in the way it's sort of taking on the movie industry and like how people go about it and like art history and people getting into character and like playing a dude disguised as another dude. Like he's doing so much of that's, I think, similar kind of commentary on the way people view and consume or make things that they're also doing here.
Yep, 100%. All right, we need to finish this up. We're over time right now. We will be having more from Severance Season 2 because I personally think it's way more interesting than Season 1 was. I went back and watched most of Season 1. Well, that's not true. I watched the first episode with my wife, the second episode with my wife, and then I skipped like the next 4 episodes and just watched recaps of them, and then watched like the last 2 or 3 episodes because I just remember feeling that like, I just need to get through this to get to Season 2. And also Season 2, it was already out. Like the first 2 episodes are already out, and I just wanted to like get to the thing.
Sure.
I do think Season 2 is a lot better.
I agree.
I think there's more character development. I think some of the stuff they're doing with her right there with Helly, I think is really, really good. It's really, really cool. They're playing her as not the villain, but also kind of like it's like a sympathetic antagonist, but then also like part of the party. I don't know. They're doing some things. Miss Wong is weird. What's up with her? Yeah. Why is like a 12-year-old working? Like there are so many freaking questions here. And why does she hate Mr. Milchek? And why does Mr. Milchek hate her? I don't know. There's a lot of fun we can have with that, and I'm really looking forward to that. Templar, anything else before we wrap up on Severance Season 1 and send it up the river or down the river, whatever it is?
No, I don't think so. I mean, generally check it out. It's for all we've said about it and gone in all sorts of different directions, which is kind of appropriate given what the show is.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting sci-fi premise that raises a ton of questions, and I think it does what good sci-fi does. Even if I have some issues with the execution, it is an example of what kind of high-minded sci-fi done in a way that I think is pretty accessible.
Agreed.
And that's cool, and I want to see more stuff like that. So
agreed. Absolutely agreed. Cool. All right. Well, for our buddy over there, Templar, who did not think this was a comedy, but takes some of these parts actually comedic, and from myself, Chino Mage, we'll see you on the next episode of the Roundtable. We love you. Goodbye.